Hello, Money Queens and listeners. Welcome to Women Behind the Millions. Let's meet the women behind the millionaires, the women supporting, guiding, celebrating women with their wealth. You will hear from women millionaires, how they got there, what they wish they had known, what got them to be a millionaire, the emotional side, the spiritual side, the practical side of wealth. You'll also get to meet the women behind the scenes helping make it happen. Let's dive into Women Behind the Millions. I am Jessica Weaver, your host, bestselling author of 3 books, wealth advisor, and founder of the Women's Wealth Boutique. Let's start meeting the women. Hello, ladies. Welcome back to Women Behind the Millions. Tonight's episode, we have with us our therapist, one of our co-authors of our newest book, Divorce Decoded. And as you know, all season long, we are talking about the juicy subject of divorce. And as you can tell from the litigator's perspective, a mediator, divorce coach, therapists, realtors, CDFAs, certified divorce financial analysts, we have you covered here at Women Behind the Millions, along with the book Divorce Decoded too. So gearing up for tonight's episode, we're going to talk all things from gaslighting to narcissism, abuse, trauma, relationships. A lot of underlying themes and patterns you might recognize in yourself. I cannot wait to dive into tonight's episode. And I was going through, what's a good therapist quote to really tee off tonight's episode? And this came up and I thought this was perfect, especially when we were talking about therapy and divorce. And therapy, and this is from a therapist talking about the profession whose mainspring is love. Nearly everyone who visits has a love disorder, and each has a story to tell of love lost or denied, love twisted or betrayed, love perverted or shackled to violence. And understanding where did that start? Where did it come from? Are there patterns, things that are repeating in your life? And really, how can you come out of the divorce as healthy as possible, mentally and emotionally, to cut those patterns and to build this new life in such a positive way as well? I am thrilled for tonight's episode. Let's bring on Donna Cates, my co-host on Women Behind the Millions this season. Hi, Donna. How are you tonight?
I am doing fabulous, and it's great to be back.
You're back. You got pink on. You always have great glasses. How many glasses do you own, by the way?
I probably have about 15 pairs, but they're just readers. So I've got on every street for any occasion.
Oh, yeah. From the head to toe, your glasses to your outfits, your shoes. What are those shoes that you always wear? We're going to give a shameless plug.
Fluvogs.
And where did you find these Fluvogs?
The first time I encountered them, I was in Denver, Colorado on a ski trip, and I walked by a store and these shoes just screamed my name and I had to look. But yeah, that's how I discovered them. Now I'm an addict.
And they fit your brand. I have to say, they fit your style. I love it. I love it, Donna. What are you hoping to get out of tonight's episode with our therapist here?
I am so excited to have the therapist. You know, we're all emotional beings and we all deal with emotional stuff all of the time. But what happens is we just get stuck and we don't know how to process or deal or heal. And that I'm really looking forward to hearing about how a therapist can help women in these circumstances, especially around divorce, getting through the decision-making process and actually taking action.
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm curious when the women come to her, if divorce might not even be on their mind yet. They might be just unhappy. They need to work on some things. And then through that work, different things come to light. So let's learn about tonight's guest, Dr. Deborah Wilder. She has been a psychologist for over 30 years, helping individuals and couples and families at all stages of their lives and relationships. She has specialized in divorce since 2013 as a divorce mediator, parenting coordinator, reunification therapist, and divorce counselor, helping people before, during, and after divorce to heal, recover, and rebuild. I really like that. Heal, recover, and rebuild. And we're really going to touch on the emotional, mental, and physical stress that comes with divorce. We know it's there. especially if there's been emotional abuse in the marriage, how to be prepared to deal with the divorce process, the attorneys, the opposing sides, potential continued abusive tactics. It just keeps going in those different triggering moments of it. She's been doing a lot of work lately with women and men too, who are either in emotionally abusive relationships or who are divorcing an emotionally abusive spouse. It's complicated, it's torturous journey, she says, dealing with a spouse as well as the legal system during this type of high conflict, dirty divorce. So we are you can tell right away, Donna, we are going to get into it. And with that, let's bring onto the stage Dr. Deborah Wilder. Thank you for bringing us tonight, Deborah.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
And where are you located, Deborah?
I'm around Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta. Should you work with clients anywhere? Do you do virtual work or is it mostly in person?
I do all virtual now. I closed my office about 2.5 years ago. So everything has been virtual since. And so I'm a member of PsyPact, which allows psychologists to practice. I believe it's in 42 states virtually. So I can do that in 42. I think it's 42 at this point, states.
I would imagine being able to do it virtually helps people commit better and make it more sustainable going to therapy or just being at the comfort of their home talking about something so emotional. Have you noticed a difference in your work with that?
You know, it's much easier. People don't have to leave work. They don't have to find a parking spot. You know, they don't have to deal with traffic. And so one of the things that I found interesting, I'll meet with people who will be in their cars. They may be in their closets. They may take me for a walk, with them. And so it's very convenient. The virtual world is very convenient. I found with little kids, I think in person is usually better. But the virtual world has really opened up and made this kind of thing and so many things accessible for so many more people.
Sure. I've been in therapy before, and part of the time was COVID. I just had my second child, and I always dealt with postpartum from the pregnancies, and COVID hit right after I had my son. And my therapist, she did say that the cancellation rate is a lot less with the virtual option, right? There's less of less excuses, we'll say. But you're right, when people are hiding in the closet or going for a walk, wanting to talk freely and not around their spouse, their future ex as well. And too, Deborah and Donna, how did you two connect in the divorce world?
I will tell you, she's actually a fellow divorce diva out of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And that's how we met each other.
A divorce diva. Now, those of you who are just tuning in, we have Jennifer Perry, who is one of our co-authors of Divorce Decoded, who is the founder of Divorce Divas. Can you ladies just talk a little bit about it in case people are new to the show?
Deborah, you want to speak to that?
Well, so my understanding of Divorce Divas, and Jennifer started this, I can't remember how long it's been, but really getting female professionals who are involved in divorce to kind of get the word out and let people know there is support, in all areas of divorce. And I think it's been expanding. And I know, Donna, you've taken a much greater role, a much more active role than I have in the Divorce Divas. So you could probably speak more to that. But it was started by Jennifer to just really get core opportunities for people going through divorce to get the support that they need in all different areas.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. Now, I know, Donna, you had some burning questions for Deborah now that we have her here. Why don't you go ahead and ask her one of the top questions of mine that you wanted to get accomplished today?
I want to ask the question simply, how do you actually help women who are thinking about divorce or already going through it? How does therapy actually help them? What are your processes? Can you speak to that?
Sure. I think having an organized mind really, really makes a difference. And so part of the therapy process is kind of clearing out the clutter, identifying there's so many layers to this. When someone comes to me and they're thinking about getting a divorce, we talk about all the reasons, how did this person get to this point? And I often ask, though, before I say, let's get going with this, I often, even when I'm mediating with people, when we have that initial conversation, I ask, have you tried to work on your marriage? Have you ever tried to get help? Because some people haven't done that yet. And I am a big believer in marriage and staying married if it can be a healthy one. I'm divorced myself. That was the best decision. But sometimes marriages don't have to end up in divorce, even if someone is thinking about it. But so there's a lot of clarity that goes into that. There's a great deal of fear. Some people stay married because they're afraid to not be married and deal with the financial consequences of getting divorced, or all the identity changes, all the changes that go into getting a divorce. So we figure out, what's underneath the desire or the need. Sometimes it's, they just need to get out. Sometimes the relationship is just so awful that they really need to get out. Or sometimes it's just, they just don't want to be married to this person anymore. So we really do a lot of clarifying and figuring out what are some of the next steps that need to be taken. There's something else even before, during the stage of trying to figure out divorce, there's something called, I'm blanking on the name, but it's a kind of therapy where it's a limited number of sessions, but discernment therapy, that's what it is. Trying to figure out, do I really want to get divorced? And so again, it's a limited amount that can either end up where the couple decides to get divorced, the couple decides to stay married and work things out, or the couple decides to just stay married and not really kind of do any work on it. So really, there's a lot of clarification, and then strategy is built in as well. I can't separate the therapist from the divorce specialist part because those things go hand in hand. So when someone comes for therapy, it's also dealing with identifying goals, identifying issues, trying to create a structure and a strategy, moving forward. So there's a sense of empowerment, a sense of less fear, trying to identify what's going to be coming up the road. So this person is much better able to deal with it. And when it comes to the kids, how do you talk to the kids about it? And all sorts of things that go into that. So many, many layers.
Oh, and Deborah, are the women, when they come to you, is divorce on their mind, or there's some things wrong, they're unhappy, and they're trying to figure out changes in themselves? Is it the relationship? Where do you see most women coming to you at? What stage?
I think it's both. I think it's both. A lot of people come in and they don't want to get a divorce, but they're not quite sure what to do. And I always encourage, I would say most of the time, I encourage the spouse to come in, because it's much easier to work on a marriage if you've got both folks there. But sometimes, that person doesn't necessarily want to come in. So I'm not sure what the percentage is, maybe half and half. When people come into the office, they want to work on their marriage or their relationship, or they just need to figure out, how do I manage moving forward?
Okay. Oh, interesting. How about the trauma and betrayal in a marriage and the psychological effects on women who experience it? What is that like?
So there are all levels of trauma as well. When you talk about betrayal, I think most people think of infidelity. And I work with a lot of folks where infidelity is a part of the relationship or has been. And my experience is that most people don't recover from that. Some people do. There are exceptions, but most people don't. And there are people who specialize in working with couples going through infidelity and kind of can take it to another level. But I have certainly worked with couples, and they have gotten stronger afterward, and they've been able to deal with the betrayal and really rebuild trust. But that's not the majority, at least in my experience. So what that kind of betrayal does is it really colors all the relationships moving forward. It really does affect levels of trust and being able to, believe in that kind of someone being able to commit to being faithful. Other areas, when it comes to, let's say, emotional abuse, a lot of times, by the time someone may come to my office or anybody else's office in this kind of situation, these folks are, their self-esteem is so low, their sense of self-worth is so low that it's really hard, to kind of see the forest through the trees. So that's, again, where the clarity comes in and really trying to empower and build strength. And really, a lot of the work that I do is reality checking. you know,
Oh,
when someone has that self-doubt, let's talk about that. Really, what's going on really? And there's a lot of the emotional abuse, the trauma associated with that, gaslighting. You mentioned that before, which is a very awful manipulative tactic to encourage someone to doubt her own reality. And it really has devastating effects.
yes.
Well, leads me to a specific question. I think that we hear the word narcissist a lot now. And it's a real thing. I know there can be a diagnosis for it, but we use it so freely now. Tell me about, when you're working with somebody that is literally married to somebody with narcissistic personality disorder.
Right. So not everybody who is emotionally abusive is a narcissist. A lot of that, the delineations can be, what is the intent? Is it a malicious intent, or this is just how this person learned to do relationships, not really recognizing the damage? Maybe this person thinks, well, this is just how you do it. Not with a malicious intent. There's a fine line. I actually had a patient, a man who asked me, he said, "Do you think I'm a narcissist?" And my response to him was no, because I'd worked with him. But most narcissists won't ask that question. They're not going to ask me or anybody, "Do you think I'm a narcissist?" No. So narcissists feed on the victim's unhappiness and discomfort. It's a supply. But not every emotionally abusive relationship does involve a narcissist. I would imagine the majority of relationships do. So when someone comes to me who is, let's say, married to a narcissist or thinking about getting a divorce from someone who really is extremely emotionally abusive, and that could include sexual abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse as well, certainly. But when we talk about like domestic emotional abuse, it sort of encompasses all those things. Again, by the time someone comes in, she's usually so traumatized, and there's actually something called a trauma bond. I'm not sure if you've heard of that. That is really when someone, it's sort of like an addiction. You've got the positive reinforcement, and then the cycle of the negativity, sort of like gambling. The intermittent reinforcement part of gambling, where you pull the lever for the slot machine, and you win every once in a while. There's no pattern to it, but the anticipation of the positive reinforcement keeps you going. With a trauma bond, there is that kind of cyclical bond there that puts the victim, and I hesitate to use that word. It could be a victim or a recipient. Let's just say victim for now. That puts her in a place of being bonded because she is desperate to not lose this person, and also often desperate for that positive reinforcement when it does come. And so at the end of a relationship, there's almost, I talk about this in the chapter, there's also something called the discomfort phase of an emotionally abusive relationship, which is an awful part. It's when the abuser is done pretty much and can just announce, "I'm done," or this person can do some awful, awful things with false, accusations that might lead to protective orders and having the parent taken away from or the kids taken away from the parent. It can really evolve into something awful. And that also feeds into, I think one of you had mentioned, Jessica, earlier, about feeding into the courtroom antics. The abuse continues there.
Ooh. And the trauma bond, is that something that the person has going into the relationship, or is that built during the relationship, or could it be both? Like if they're used to that kind of environment, is that a personality thing? Is it created? What would you say, Deborah?
I think that's a good question. I think it's created in the relationship. However, it could be that this person goes from one relationship to the next. And part of the therapy, the process is to improve that sense of self-worth and have, develop a set of expectations for what is a healthy relationship, what is an unhealthy relationship. Because if that person doesn't get help then the pattern is repeated often. So excellent question, that the bond builds in the relationship, but someone could be much more vulnerable to that bond.
Oh. What could family members do if they're witnessing their loved one in that kind of abusive relationship? What can they do to best support them when they're in that sort of trauma bond cycle?
Mm-hmm. I think it's important to call it for what it is, but in a very sensitive way, because a lot of times the folks who are bonded, they don't want to see it. They don't want anything to interfere with the marriage. They don't want to lose the spouse.
If they're hiding it, I'm guessing they're probably hiding it.
Probably, yeah, because there's a lot of shame often associated with that. Family members may or may not see it. If I would encourage family members to very thoughtfully and gently and delicately let this person know, I've seen some things and I'm aware of some things, and I want you to know that you can come to me. I want to be a safe space for you, and not to push anything that might be shameful. I can't believe you're staying with him. Like, what's wrong with you? Can't you see that sort of thing? That's not going to be helpful. But to be a support.
I'm glad we're talking about this, because I'm sure people who are watching this are witnessing relationships like this,
Mm-hmm.
and they're tiptoeing around, how do I address it? And like you said, Deborah, have that, just know that it's a non-judgmental, safe place that they can come when the time is, and to know that there's people like you, Deborah, that are a phone call away to help with heavy stuff that we're talking about tonight. But we talked about this earlier before we started recording the show. It feels, as Donna mentioned, narcissism's thrown out there a lot these days. Abuse, some heavy words. Gaslighting is another one that's really starting to become more aware, more mainstream as well. Deborah, is there more knowledge and awareness around this, or are there more narcissists than ever before? What would you say?
So I haven't conducted any research, but I'm seeing a lot more of that. And I think it's a combination of people are speaking up more, it's recognized more. And I think, it's with social media, we have so much access to information and podcasts or advertisements or commercials, and that word narcissism is thrown out a lot. And it doesn't always fit, but it's out there enough. It's descriptive. So I think people are recognizing more what this is. And also I think people are they're still feeling, again, there's a lot of shame that comes with being a recipient or victim of this. But a lot of people are once, they recognize what's going on, they can feel more empowered because it's out there so much and there is so much information. So it may be a combination that, there are more narcissists or emotional abusers, as well as people becoming more informed.
One more question. I'm going to address this to Donna, and then I do want to talk about the children and divorce too. We'll make sure we have plenty of time for that as well. Donna, what are your thoughts on, as more women are becoming financially independent, that they're willing to become aware that they're married to an abusive relationship or married to a narcissist? Do you think that's a correlation as well?
I can say that I see that the more financially savvy or knowledgeable a woman is, she's more likely to leave without having that embedded fear. That's the common thread there. If they aren't financially secure, a lot of women are going to stay in that marriage just flat out of fear. And that's something my husband and I talk about. He does not understand why anybody that's in a physically abusive or emotionally abusive relationship would choose not to leave. And I'm going, it's a lot more complicated than that. But I think, the financial, as women, as we talk about this more, as we make it not as shameful, to actually say the D word, just sharing the information, women are more apt to step out and speak up and share what their situation is.
Yes, I could see that. And my husband's very similar, and he's a first responder. He's a police officer. And so he sees the domestic violence on a day-to-day basis. It's just a part of his regular life. Similar to you, Deborah, right? You just experience it. You hear the stories regularly, but that bond, as you were calling it, that explains. And I think as people become more aware of it, to put less shame on those relationships, as you said, Donna and Deborah, can be very helpful for the women in them, and they feel very trapped, especially when it comes to their money. I've also noticed a dynamic difference when somebody's married to an older man. There can be a power dynamic change where they can be very set in their ways and controlling to the younger partner in the relationship. Have you noticed that at all, Deborah?
I don't. I was just thinking about that. I haven't had too many couples I've worked with or where the age differential is that large. When you talk about the power differential, I have certain, and then that usually comes with a financial difference. If the spouse is the higher earner, then the woman may stay because she's afraid, again, financially, to leave, and there's no guarantee that she's going to have spousal support, or certainly, with your kids, there should be child support depending on the custody plan. But I haven't had that much experience working with a different age, difference like that.
Yeah, I'd be curious on that. I've noticed this among some of my friends and colleagues as well. And it might not just be the age, but it could be the financial, as you said, Deborah. There's a power dynamic difference. And that kind of starts the ball rolling with these different pieces. I loved, as we started this conversation, having an organized mind, cleaning out the clutter. As Deborah said, I feel like that's what we do, right, Donna, with the finances, what you do. Identity changes. That's been a big theme here on this show. And I'm sure within the chapters of the book too, figure out who are you, not as part of a married unit, but by yourself. Show that we recorded before, Jennifer Perry, is also right. How do you want to advocate for yourself? Not together, but this is your voice now. Or to clarity on the next step and the reality checks, which I started our segue into the gaslighting, the narcissism, the abuse. Is this normal, or is this an abusive relationship? And I think having that third party like you, Deborah, for women to understand, is it me? Am I just really bad at cooking, and that's why he's always upset that I'm a horrible cook and throwing things? Or is this an actual abusive relationship too? Let's switch gears here. And Donna, I know you have some questions in regards to the kids in divorce. I'm going to tee it over to you to ask Deborah.
Okay, awesome. So we know that every member of the family, regardless of their age, is impacted by divorce. So we often, I'll hear people say, well, what about the kids? And we automatically think that we're speaking of the young children, but the older children are impacted as well. But I'd love to hear your take on how we, as the people, the parents that are divorcing, how we can communicate effectively with the children, how we can bring them into the conversation without doing damage. Tell us about that. How do we talk to the children about divorce in a positive way?
Great question. Again, there are a number of layers there, and there's actually been research done on how divorce affects children at different ages. What I think, from my understanding, that the younger children, when their parents get divorced, they still believe in marriage, but they may have a harder time in relationships. With the older children whose parents, let's say, might be in their 50s, 60s, 70s, getting divorced, they believe in love, but they might not believe in marriage, So the research has been interesting. The last I read on that. Divorce affects kids, differently, different ages. For the younger children, being aware, I think awareness is important for parents. Kids may regress. The younger children might start to wet the bed. They might start to not do so well in school. The older kids, like middle school kids, they get embarrassed and they may retreat as far as not spend time with the parent or just not really talk. They might talk more to their friends, which is age appropriate too. Their schoolwork might be affected in a negative way, With the high school kids, you got to watch out for sexual behavior, overly sexual behavior, drug abuse, kind of getting in with the wrong crowd, or getting depressed, discouraged, anxious, all these things that just kind of being aware of what the children are going through, how to have conversations with them as you're asking. Number one is don't disparage the other parent if you can help it. That's not going to do anybody any good. But to speak to, let's say when I work with parents who need to tell their kids they're getting divorced, they're always encouraged to speak to the level of the youngest child. You may not want to talk to the 5-year-old and the 15-year-old in the same conversation. What I often tell parents to tell their kids, if they can do it together, that's great. That doesn't always happen. But if you can say to the kids something along the lines of, look, your dad and I, or your mom and I realize we're going to get along a lot better if we're not, living in the same house, or if we're not married anymore. We're going to be able to still love you and parent you. And, there's nothing that you kids did to make this happen. And there's nothing that you can do to change it. And really just paying attention to what the kids are going through. And if they ask questions, let's say there has been infidelity, I don't think it's a good idea to let the children in on too much information. That they don't need to know that, at least right off the bat. Again, there could be extenuating circumstances. I've worked with a number of folks, especially lately, where the spouse is awful. I mean, and the abuse has been awful, and the continued abuse in court. And so I know that there are some parents who the custody has been affected. And so there's so much that they want to say about the other parent, but the other parent is doing everything that he can do to keep the kids from the abused parent. So, there's so many, again, levels of divorce, but really keeping the kids' welfare in mind is utmost. Mm-hmm. What is going to benefit the children the most? Security, predictability. There's a book called something like, Mommy, why are you and Daddy getting a divorce? And when can I have a hamster? The little kids, their attention span is so great. They just need to know where they're going to sleep at night, who's going to take them to school, and the best gift that divorcing parents or divorced parents can give to their children is to not have conflict in front of the children. Some parents don't even say hello to each other. Some parents they'll send the kid out the door, or I've worked with folks who one parent wants to have an extra 30 minutes because, there's a basketball game that is going to run over their custody time. Well, by golly, that other parent is going to get that 30 minutes back. The rigidity is not helpful to the kids either, but just being very sensitive at how you speak to the kids and, not, again, disparaging the other parent, but allowing the child to feel as secure as possible, that both parents love the children. And sometimes that's questionable. So we have to be real here. Sometimes that isn't really what's happening. But if it is, encourage the child also to have a relationship with the other parent. There doesn't need to be a competition. The children need to feel like they can love both parents and like both parents, and don't grill the kids, don't interrogate the kids. So what did your dad say? What did your mom say? No. So just to be really sensitive about visits and time with the other parent, and sensitive to, I guess, the ages of the kids and what they might be going through.
Yep.
That's very helpful, Deborah. How about what resources are out there for children whose parents are going through a divorce?
What resources? There are a lot of therapists who work with little kids. I love little kids. I don't generally work with the little ones. Whether it's play therapy, helping, because they don't necessarily have the words, the little ones, to express how they feel. And if you think about it, if the parents are struggling with communication, you can't expect a child to communicate well. They usually act out or may act out their feelings. But there are a lot of wonderful resources, therapeutic resources, even books, that are age appropriate, or videos. I also encourage parents to read, even if it's downloading a little article, from the computer. How do you talk to your kids at this age, or that sort of thing? But there are really a lot of wonderful resources. And the thing is, pretty much 50% of first marriages end in divorce, at least, in this country, and probably 70-ish or so of second marriages ended in divorce. So first marriages, about half of those. So they probably have friends who are, parents are divorced as well. So it's not so unusual in most situations, but there are a lot of resources there.
Yes, find some peer-to-peer support as well before it too. Donna, do you have any other questions in regards to the children and divorce?
Not with children. I would love to know about strategies for self-care. How do you because we're all in this emotional upheaval. What are some good ways to have good self-care for ourselves and to set good boundaries and such?
So the boundaries, that's often a huge issue, being able to recognize boundaries and figure out how do you establish them. And that could be very challenging, especially with someone who, with an emotionally abusive spouse, because the boundaries generally haven't been there. But self-care is very, very important. There's a statement that I often say, and it's reaction is by default and response is by design. We are reactionary creatures. We are defensive creatures. So we need to learn to be responsive. So that means taking a step back and kind of seeing what the lay of the land is. And that does involve self-care. Basically we need to do the best that we can, eating healthy meals. Okay. Exercising. Okay. Let's do the best that we can. The reality is, each day may feel like a roller coaster. We have some great days or not great days, or 5 minutes here or 5 minutes there. But the self-care, like, you pull, you're instructed on an airplane to pull the oxygen mask down first before you put it on the children. It's something similar. So really trying to physically take care of yourself, get the support that you need, and deal with all this stuff that's going on. It's overwhelming. I think the basic fear is, how am I going to survive this? How am I going to be able to take care of myself and the kids and not break down and just lose it? And sometimes it's okay to lose it, but really taking what we want to do, and I talk about this in the chapter, is there's so much stress that's associated with divorce. And so if we can work on decreasing the stress response, the fight, flight, freeze, and there's actually another one that I learned fairly recently called fawn, which is sort of being a peacemaker and trying to make things okay, smooth things over. But usually in divorce, you may be beyond that. So the fight, flight, freeze response needs to be dealt with. And that's from the inside out. So it may be, meditation or massage, and often in marriages, when you're getting a divorce, you lose that touch. And touch is actually the first language that we learn. We come out, we're touched. And so that is something that people may lose when they're not in that kind of relationship anymore. So maybe massage therapy or listening to music or just something that can calm the insides, but also getting the help from the proper professionals. Again, the financial professionals, because there's a huge financial fear. Get yourself an attorney who knows how to deal with the other side and the other side's attorney, because that they play hardball. You need to have someone who can play hardball as well. But recognizing that self-care is not selfish. It's self-care, and it's absolutely necessary.
Yes, I would even say it's selfless.
Yeah.
Because the better we are, the better we can be for our kids, the better we'll show up in what could be a triggering environment like the courtroom or the attorney's office as well. And you're right, Deborah, I didn't even think about that, but you have your soon-to-be ex to deal with, and then their attorney, and you have no control over what that attorney is going to be like, how they are. You need to be able to maneuver through all those different pieces of it. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Stay with us, because as you can tell, Deborah is a wealth of knowledge. She's going to share with us her divorce tip, her trend that she's been noticing as well. So stay with us, ladies. This has been very, very good. What do you think, Donna?
Absolutely fabulous. Yes. And we don't have enough time.
And we do not, as always. All right. We'll see you ladies in a little bit. So what are the real reasons people are having these feelings or having these repeating patterns of money issues? And I wanted to dig deep into those areas. What are the triggers? What are the emotions? Let's actually have some healing instead of just doing a quick fix. So having those two different kind of conflicts in me, I decided, I begged my father, can I just focus on women? Can I reach women? Can I dig deep with them? Have events for women?
that spurred my first book, Strong Woman, Stronger Assets, my second book, Time to Refine, and then finally Confessions of a Money Queen. And so here I am, not your father's advisor, years later, opening up the Women's Wealth Boutique, the fastest growing female-owned firm in the nation. But we're also a multimedia firm because our goal is to get resources, financial education, literacy out to women. Even one of our biggest viewers for our blog is in underdeveloped countries, for women, getting them the financial resources that they don't have access to at all. So you can work with us as a one-on-one capacity as a full-time client, or you can be part of our community just with our events, our books, our online courses. There's so many different ways to get engaged with us. So one, we focus on women and we will not apologize for it, but also we are a multimedia firm, which is very different than the traditional financial advisory offices you see.
All right, ladies, we are back with Dr. Deborah Wilder's Her Divorce Tip. What do you have for us tonight, Deborah?
I think be strategic. Be strategic. It's very hard to separate the emotions. You can't go through divorce emotionless. It's, it's like white on rice. It's going to happen. But to be as strategic as possible and just to keep the kids in mind, always keep them at the forefront and try to identify what the end goals are. Another thing that's very important and not always easy to do is to take the high road if you can, because what you're doing is you're planting seeds that are going to have a large rate of return down the road. So you can, lay your head down at night saying, I've conducted myself well today, and you're also modeling for your children. So if you can take the high road, great. Did I do it? The majority of the time as I was going through my divorce, were there times when I didn't? Yep. But again, that's normal, I would say, for the most part. But really just trying to focus on what the end goals are. One more thing is the way that you might feel now is probably going to be very different down the road. Now there's upheaval and stress and anger and hurt and all sorts of fear. Down the road, once the dust settles and even years down the road, you might feel very differently and have a very different relationship with your ex-spouse. So keep that in mind, that the way that you feel now, this is not sustainable. It's not sustainable for a great length of time. It's sustainable for now, but it's going to change, hopefully for the better. And so keeping that in mind, that things will get better, and you're also going to discover a strength, within you that you never thought was possible, ever thought was possible. And so to focus on what's possible is really, really important.
Yes, Donna, you can confirm that it seems with every one of our professionals, that has been the same tried and true. The strength, the confidence, the independence that these women gain as they're going through a divorce. They are not the same person they are when they enter it. And so many of the professionals have gone through their own divorce or separation, and they can attest to that as well. And what you said, Deborah, Lisa Lisser, one of our divorce coaches and co-authors of Divorce Decoded, and it was about really setting that intention manifesto for the divorce. Right? What is the mission of the divorce, and keeping that in mind when emotions might be running rampant, or the different, very challenging times as well. And for you to reaffirm that is very, very good. Very, very good. Awesome. How about, Deborah, your divorce trend? What have you been noticing lately?
Yeah, as you were bringing up about the narcissist and the emotional abuse, I've noticed more and more of those folks coming to me and reaching out to me. It's again, I don't know if it's because of social media and there's more attention, or something in the air or something in the water, but whatever it is, I've been working with a lot more men and women, but mostly women, who are dealing with that and trying to figure out how to, either stay married and have a healthier marriage, or how to get divorced and just sort of kind of work through all those things. So that's the trend. Which is an unfortunate one. Mm-hmm. That's what I've noticed more.
I would agree from what I've noticed, and probably same for you, Donna, especially when it comes to the financial abuse and control. As women are becoming more educated on the finances, they're staying around for it anymore. They're not settling for it, which looking for past generations, they probably would have stayed in that dynamic for the entire time or for a much longer period of time. And I've also noticed that second generation of the parents, the mother was in a financially abusive or some sort of abusive relationship. They're being very proactive and taking the steps to make sure it doesn't happen to them. How about you, Donna? What have you been noticing?
I think the thing that delights me right now is that women are not as afraid to come forward and seek help. So it was, if people would be way too embarrassed to say, I know nothing about our financial situation. He strokes me a check once a week and that's all the money I get to spend. They wouldn't even admit that. But now they're actually, coming to me and saying, I have no knowledge. It's my fault. Could have played a better role. I didn't. But here I am, and now I need help. So just having the courage to step up and say, help me, please, and wanting to learn and be knowledgeable about the household finances, that's a big move in a positive way.
Oh, sure. Yes. Asking for help, the awareness that they can ask for help and that there are professionals out there. Part of exactly why we have the book coming out, why we have this whole season dedicated to divorce as well. That just amazing. Well, Deborah, we have one more question for you as we're wrapping up tonight's show. Again, Donna mentioned it goes fast.
Yeah.
Episode especially. All right, here it is.
What makes you a woman behind the millions?
Is that your daughter?
She is. That is Angie girl, and she loves being a part of the show. She's very curious. What makes you a woman behind the millions?
Oh, she's adorable. So I've been doing this for 35 years, 30 as a psychologist. So I've had the privilege of being involved in people's lives and helping them make life happier and easier. And so I'd like to think, a rising tide lifts all ships. I'd like to think that those who have been fortunate to feel better and live life differently, that they've been able to lift others up as well. So the wealth is really not necessarily the financial part, even though that's a very important part. But the wealth, is being able to kind of be a candle that can light another candle, that can light as many candles, and there's no flame lost at all. So that I guess is what makes me feel very privileged, to be in this position, kind of paying it forward, so to speak.
Love it.
That is beautiful. And we are so grateful for the work that you do. I mean, for women to come into the divorce journey, ending into with a clear mind, with good clarity on who they are, who they want to be. As you mentioned, taking the high road. I believe in karma. You ladies believe in karma too?
A lot of times I do. Yeah.
Right. You will never regret taking the high road, I believe, right? Things are going to come back to you in a good, bountiful way as well. You might regret being spiteful at times or taking the low road as well, but you're going to sleep better knowing that you were a good person today, despite what the other person was and what they did to you as well. Any last words, Deborah, as we round out tonight's episode? It's been amazing having you here with us. Cannot wait to read your chapter as well. Any last words?
I just am grateful and appreciate both of you and the opportunity to share. And I feel very fortunate in my life to have gone through, some hardship that I've learned from, and folks like you who also pay it forward and allow the information that we can all share to help other people, to put that on different platforms. So I'm grateful to be a part of this discussion tonight and to know the two of you and to be a part of this wonderful project as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And Donna, we should say, especially since we touched so much on abuse, narcissism, gaslighting tonight, the book proceeds, tell them about the book proceeds for those of supporting Divorce Decoded. What's going to happen with them?
We're actually going to be giving all of our proceeds to a domestic violence organization. We haven't defined who that is yet, but it's definitely going to be centered around supporting women on domestic violence.
Yeah. So the book is a resource. It's going to create even more resources around domestic violence. And we can even donate books, copies of books to shelters, different organizations as well, just to let women know that we are here. We are a phone call away, an email away. We are available as well. So thank you so much, Donna and Deborah, for being such strong advocates and voices in the divorce world for women. We will see you all on our next episode next Thursday at night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on E360. We'll see you soon. Thank you for watching and supporting us. As always, sending you so much love and prayers.
Hey, money queens, looking to get your wealth to that next level, 7, 8, 9 figures? Follow us on Instagram at PinkFixMyMoney and at Women's Wealth Boutique for more millionaire money tips.